timeline, Sarah. So the Intercept reporter Ryan Grimm tweeted out photos of Colby Holderness's black eye at 1:53 a.m. on Wednesday, and the Daily Mail published them at 8:30 on Wednesday morning. Then the White House sent CBS a statement at 1:45 on Wednesday afternoon, 12 hours after all of these photos were already published and out. Why was the White House still saying that Porter was a man of integrity and honor after these photos had circulated?
So the question that has been swirling around Washington this week has been, what did the White House know about Rob Porter and when did they first learn it? All of it was set off by a series of stories published last week by both the Daily Mail and the Intercept about Rob Porter's abuse of his two ex-wives. The Intercept story in particular included the news that his wives had spoken directly with the FBI, that he could be a security risk because he could be susceptible to blackmail as a result of the knowledge that somebody else might have of his abuse of his wives, including the fact that photographic evidence existed, which the Intercept first published.
And I'm quite confident that in this particular instance, the FBI followed established protocols.
So was the White House informed that this could affect his security clearance? That's a yes or no.
I can't get into the content of what was briefed.
Were they informed?
What I can tell you is that the FBI submitted a partial report on the investigation in question in March, and then a completed background investigation in late July. That soon thereafter we received requests for follow-up inquiry, and we did the follow-up and provided that information in November, and then we administratively closed the file in January.
We reported this last week before Ray's comment that the FBI first brought this matter to the White House in March. And we know from our reporting that it was January that the wives spoke with the FBI and shared photos proving the abuse. That means the FBI acted, bureaucratically speaking, rather quickly to move from January to March to tell the White House. If the White House had had any questions about why and what was going on, they would have had access to these photos. Now, what happened last week is that on Tuesday, the Daily Mail published a kind of skeleton version of a story that alleged a lot of emotional abuse at the hands of Porter toward his second wife, Jenny Willoughby. It was in this article that John Kelly, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Orrin Hatch all came to his defense. It did include some violent action on his part, yanking her physically out of a shower and breaking glass on a front door, leading to a restraining order. And it included a quote from his first wife saying that she had suffered similar abuse, including physical abuse. It was later that night that I tweeted the photos out, and I did this after talking with Colby, who wanted to be there so that Jenny was not hanging out alone. The way that the first Daily Mail story read, you had all of these powerful officials and a senator standing up for the abuser, and it was just her word on the other hand. And I do think that if that's all there had been, it would have moved on from there, and we certainly wouldn't still be talking about it. And so she wanted very quickly, once that story broke, to get her story out too, so that she'd be able to at least support Jenny, so that there would be powerful figures against two women at that point. Plus, she had some photographic evidence to back it up. And we, after tweeting it, we followed up the next day with a full interview.
Okay, I'm going to go to questions, but let me just ask you just a little bit about were you trying to scoop the Daily Mail? Did you realize what a huge scandal it was going to be a week ago, that we'd still be talking about it today?
And the way it unfolded was that we'd been working on this story for weeks. We heard on Tuesday that the Daily Mail was starting to put something together very quickly. And so we kind of doubled down on our conversations with his ex-wives to kind of move our timeline up. The Daily Mail, which is kind of a right-wing British tabloid, has different standards for what they're willing to publish. And so What they did in order to get something out was they linked to a public blog post that she had written in the past, spoke to her very briefly, and put something online to get it out there. Whereas we were speaking to friends and family of the ex-wives, and going through it a lot more thoroughly. All that is to answer Eric's question, which is, did I know that it was going to be as big of a deal as I thought that it would? Now, the White House has certainly contributed to that by changing its story over and over and over again. But once I saw that first Daily Mail story, which included all of those defenses of Rob Porter, I did think to myself, wow, they have really blown this, because I knew the real story. And I suspected that they did too, that they had access to the FBI information. They certainly had access to Porter himself, who was aware that these photos existed. And so shortly after that Daily Mail story published, I let the White House know I have a lot more, and I have the photos. So taking that long from the time that they were defending him, probably already having been aware of the evidence, and taking days, and then days later.
As you probably know, he says he's innocent, and I think you have to remember that. He said very strongly yesterday that he's innocent. So you'll have to talk to him about that, but we absolutely wish him well. Did a very good job while he was at the White House. Thank you very much, everybody.
For the president to come out and say, isn't it a shame that we don't have due process anymore, kind of ramped it up to another level, because there was a months up to a year-long background check, like involving some of the best investigators that the country has to offer in the FBI. And so they did go through this process. It's not as if these were just claims that just came from out left field. They were investigated in a very thorough way. So for the president to then say, well, isn't it a shame that people are being destroyed without due process, really put a face to the callousness here.
You know, when you said that you contacted the White House and said, I have more, that was very informative for me, because I've been wondering about this phrase, fully aware. And I've been wondering if the term fully aware meant fully aware that we're not going to get away with it. That communication that you had with the White House, how does that fit in the timeline between General Kelly saying he's a man of the utmost integrity and he's not going anywhere, and I became fully aware and he was gone in 40 minutes?
It would have been late on Tuesday night that I emailed the White House to say, and it was emailing back and forth with officials there saying, letting them know that I did have more. And so that would have been a couple hours after the Daily Mail had put up its story that included all of their denial. Because I do try to be very transparent and upfront about everything that I have. I find that's a better way to do reporting than to allow people to be surprised by what you eventually publish.
I don't know if this gives them more of an excuse or less of an excuse for being all over the place.
I'd say less. Right. Yeah. Right. They had more. So what people can point to is whenever I tweeted the photos, but whenever that was several hours after I had been in touch with them about the photos, and that there was more coming.
Can you really quick talk about your relationship with the two ex-wives and what sort of approach you took to make sure that they didn't feel as if they were being exploited, or that they couldn't trust you, or to make sure they knew they could?
So Aline worked mostly with Jenny, and then I worked mostly with Colby. It's very simple in a way. It's that you just let them know that this is fully their decision, whether they want to go on the record or not. It's going to impact them, not me. What they want to say and when they want to say it is up to them. And these were people who had been thinking about this for a very long time and had thought through the implications. And for Colby's part, she had already, after we first spoke, she went and got permission from the ethics office at the agency where she worked, because as a federal employee, you're not supposed to do partisan work and talk to the media about partisan activity. But the office ruled that this was not at all partisan activity. This was personal. This was her life. It was her story. It was her right to tell it or not to tell it. And I think when people understand that that's the approach that you're taking, that makes them feel comfortable.